Kia ora Year 13s, Mr. Allen here. Okay, the next stage of our write-up on time series that we're going to look at is our trend line. Now my trend line is this thick black line running through my time series graph. On NZ Grapher, if you have long-term trend ticked, that will put the trend line in for you. Untick seasonal trend because we don't want that at the moment. But if you also tick start end points, NZ Grapher will tell you the values that your trend line is starting and ending at. Now my data is on total filled jobs in millions in New Zealand. The data that I used for examples in class so far. So my trend line is starting at 1.81 million total filled jobs here in New Zealand, and it's ending at 1.92 total filled jobs in millions in New Zealand. And the other thing that we are going to need from this data is our time on our time axis. So my data is starting at that point there and it's ending at that point there. Now to find out these dates, you're going to have to go into your spreadsheet that your data is typed up into and look these up. Now my first entry is M07 2004. That means that my first set of data was collected in July 2004 and it was collected monthly, not quarterly. My last one was M02 2012. That means that my last piece of data was collected in February 2012. The first analysis we want to do then is to describe what we've got there. So my trend line starts at 1.81 million in July 2004 and has risen to 1.92 million by February 2012. The next thing we want to state is the mean or the average gradient of my trend line. How much has this risen by over this course of time per month? So it's ended at 1.92 and it started at 1.81, so it has risen by 0.11 million total filled jobs, or 110,000 total filled jobs in the time of this data being collected. Now I'll leave you to do the maths, but that gives me 92 months that my data was collected for. Don't forget to include July 2004 because the data was started to collect it at 1st of July 2004. So if I divide this by 92, that's going to give me an average in the change in total filled jobs per month, the average gradient of my trend line, which is 1,196 total filled jobs in New Zealand per month. So my trend is increasing at an average of, or a mean of 1,196 filled jobs per month. The next part of our analysis on our trend line is to analyse the parts of the trend line, to break this trend line down a little bit. And so for my first stage here, I've got a trend line that's increasing. And then I've got a trend line that's decreasing. And then my trend increases again, but not as steeply as the initial increase. And what I haven't got, and you can have on some data, is a constant trend as well. And we're going to describe what's happening here. And we're going to have to approximate some values as well for this. So my trend line is starting at 1.81 million total filled jobs, and that's not an approximation, and it's rising to approximately 1.96 million filled jobs by March 2008, and my trend line is then decreasing, and it's decreasing from 1.96 million approximately to approximately 1.88 million, and that is up to September 2009. So I'll be typing this up in as a paragraph, not as I've written it on my screen here, but describing what is happening. And then from September 2009, again, it has risen from 1.88 to 1.92 million total field jobs by February 2012. And for those of us going for higher grades, we want to be Googling, searching up these dates and looking to find out what could have happened at these times to have caused these increases, decreases in my trend. And we want to also look at what we did there and work out the average change of the gradient of these trend lines for these sections. Okay, when we break the trend line down into this, it's sometimes called a piecemeal graph. So each piece of the trend line we want to analyse now. So for the first part, the average increase in jobs is going to be 196, take away 191, divided by how many months that is, to work out the average increase in jobs there. And we want to put a bit of research into that and find out what could have been happening to cause this increase. Now, I've done some research, and in my data I've also, from Statistics New Zealand, found out that between July 2004 to March 2008, the population of New Zealand was increasing. Now, if I've got an increase in population, I would expect to have an increase in the amount of people in employment. So that could be explaining my increase in my trend line there. For my decrease, the second piece of my trend line there, I've got a decrease in trend. And we've discussed this in class, what happened in early 2008. There was a world recession when Lehman Brothers crashed. So if I was going for higher grading, I'd explain what happened there and what could have caused this decrease in my trend between these two times, and I could work out the difference. So 1.96 take away 1.88 divided by how many months this is to tell me the average decline per month in the total field jobs in New Zealand, and explain that using my research, the world recession where lots and lots of people around the world lost their jobs. And then for the last piece of my trend line, again we've got an increase there, not as steep as the first increase though, and it's 1.92 take away 1.88 divided by how many months that is. That will tell me the rate that my total field jobs in New Zealand is increasing per month, and the research would tell me that we came out of recession in early 2010, and so people are starting to regain their jobs there again, aren't they? So that's how we analyse the trend line. We want to analyse it in one step, the average increase or decrease per month, and then we want to break it down into pieces of increases, decreases or constant, look at the average change across that part of the trend line, and then do some research to find out what could have caused that. See, the analysis of your trend line should be going quite into depth, particularly with the research into each section, and you don't want to be breaking your trend line down into any more than 4 pieces. Okay, I broke mine down into 3 pieces. 3 pieces adequate, no more than 4. Goodbye. Thank you.